Welcome to Mind Shift Power Podcast, a show for teenagers and the adults who work with them, where we have raw and honest conversations. I'm your host, Fatima Bey, the Mind Shifter. And welcome, everyone. Today we have with us Tina Baxter from the Nurse Shark Academy. She is from Anderson, Indiana. She is a nurse entrepreneur, owner of Baxter Professional Services Health Education, and owner of the Nurse Shark Academy. How are you today, Tina?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm looking forward to talking to you. So I like to dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I am a nurse practitioner. I'm a registered nurse, advanced practice nurse. So I've been in healthcare for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I started out as a lab tech in high school. I worked summers in the lab, and then I became a certified nursing assistant and worked in long-term care, and then decided to go back to school to become a registered nurse. And then later got my master's degree in education and as a nurse practitioner.
What made you decide to go back to school to become a nurse?
Well, originally, I was in college at the time studying biology, and my goal was to go to medical school. But I discovered that I did not want to be a physician. I have physicians in my family, and what I saw is I just didn't like the way they lived. They had all the money, but none of the time freedom. And I wanted to know more about how the patient got to where they are and what we can do to help them to get better, not just fix the immediate problem, but the other stuff that goes on that led to the issue a lot of times. And so I found nursing was really my calling and my niche, and I love it.
Oh, I find that very interesting. So what I just gathered from what you just said was that there is more than just money as an objective.
Yes. You know what? Nurses can make good money. Yeah, we can. But if you're just in it for the money, you're going to be one of those that burn out really quickly.
Can you repeat that, please, and say it louder?
Yeah, because if you're just in it for the money, the burnout factor is there. You have to really enjoy and love what you're doing. And for me, there are days when it's tough, and there's days when I'm like, yep, I'm ready to hang up my hat and retire.
Yeah.
But then I also remember the days where the patients whose lives I've changed and touched and helped. And, for me, that's a fulfilling of a calling. So it's not just a job. It's a passion for me.
Yes, I love hearing all of that because that is something that I teach and coach on. Your passion is a part of your purpose, and that's what you should be making money on, not just working a job. And if you had become a doctor, you would have been just working a job. You would have been making more money, but with more misery attached to it. So what's the point?
I found it kind of stifling, actually.
And I'm sure there are doctors out there who feel the same way about nursing because we're not all called to the same thing. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that's great. So I'm glad that you said that. Now, I said you were the owner of Nurse Shark Academy. So what is Nurse Shark Academy? Do you teach sharks how to be nurses?
I actually teach nurses that they are sharks.
Ooh, so tell us about that.
A shark is an expert in their field of business. So, for example, everybody's seen the show Shark Tank. And when I came with the name of the academy, I've been watching a lot of Shark Tank, and Damon John happens to be one of the people that I follow, and I had read his book. And so I got inspired, and I was trying to find a name for my academy where I help nurses to start, build, and launch their own businesses. And I thought, well, if we're experts in nursing, yes, and now we're going to be experts in business. So the Nurse Shark Academy came along. And then I also researched the actual animal. There's a nurse shark animal. And what I love about the nurse shark animal, yes, there really is that it has a lot of teeth. The shark has a lot of teeth, but it's generally non-lethal. In other words, it won't bother you if you don't bother it.
Mm.
And so I like that aspect because nurses, we do have teeth now. Been, met some nurses, we got some teeth, but most of the time, you know, we are compassionate and helpful, and we want to do what's best for the person. But don't get us twisted. We will stand up and advocate for our patients, for each other, and so that's a good thing. And so I thought that's a great way of describing what it is to be a nurse expert in business, is to be a nurse shark.
Oh wow, I absolutely love that, and I like that analogy because now I just love that analogy of the nurse shark. I didn't know that that was actual real thing. So, give us some examples of businesses that some of your clients who attend the Nurse Shark Academy have started.
Well, one, actually, she's not a nurse, but one is a social worker, and she
Hmm.
developed her own. She was in the school system for over 30 years,
Mm.
and retired. And she wanted to develop a program for young people, teenagers, on helping them to cope with some of the things that they deal with, and really put them forward. So she developed her own consulting business and
Oh,
coaching business to help families deal with the things that teenagers do deal with. And then she also included financial literacy in her practice. So we helped her with some of the concepts and getting her started, and really working her through her business plan and planning that. I had another client who I have to say she's probably my best one because she talks about it all the time. I helped her start a CNA training school.
okay.
She was a CPR instructor, and kind of like me, biology major and all of that, became a nurse educator. And she wanted to have her own CNA training school. So by the time we got done working through her plan, she had called me one day and said, Miss Tina, I went to the bank to start my bank account, and they asked for my financial plan, and I could just hand it right to them because it was already done. I said, I told
That's
you that
awesome. That feels really
little,
good.
yeah, that little bit of pain that you had and getting it together, we worked through that. It worked out. So now she's doing so well. She's got contracts with several school systems teaching their CNA training programs through her company.
I absolutely love that you're doing this. I love entrepreneurship. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. But I like that you have a special niche that you focus on with it. What I'm hearing is you know how to think outside the box when it comes to your industry and teaching people that they can go from just being a nurse. And some people are happy just being a nurse, but many of them do have ideas of entrepreneurship, and you can help them to get into that. Um, that's wonderful. So let me ask you this. How has Nurse Shark Academy made a difference in the medical world? Have you seen that?
I would say just by opening up people's eyes to what nurses can do and be. One of
Mm.
the things when I started the Nurse Shark Academy, I noticed is that when I was talking to people that were not in the healthcare field, they would say, I didn't know nurses could own businesses.
Mm,
I said,
exactly.
absolutely, we can. I'm like, if you can write a nursing care plan, you can write a business plan. So I said, yeah, we can do any type of business and use our nursing skills in a different way. You're still a nurse. You just happen to be a nurse entrepreneur. And one of the things that came out of that realization was that people didn't know what nurses could do. And then I had conversation with nurses who said, I never thought of owning a business. I didn't know I could own a business. And so that's what made me start the podcast, so I can talk to other nurse business owners so we can find out how they got started. So maybe it will inspire someone else to start their business.
So I'm Fatima Bay, the mind shifter. I think you're Tina Baxter, the nurse mind shifter. Because that's what I'm hearing. You're able to shift people's thinking within your field, to open up their minds to do more, and that is amazing. Because I think if you are able to do that, like you said, with nurses in the field, then the entire medical world does benefit by all these other practices, businesses opening up that otherwise wouldn't exist, that aren't just your standard uh, insurance, reigned
Yes.
businesses, which is what most of the medical field is right now. I think that is wonderful. And do you see? Do you and does anybody ever come back to you and say, "Wow, thank you so much uh, for teaching me because now I'm excited and I'm doing this and that or whatever"?
Yeah, all the time. That's the great part of being in this collaborative space. So I have met so many other nurse entrepreneurs and innovators out there. There's a whole movement that's going on in nursing that I don't think people are aware of. I think of organizations like Nurses in Tech that are helping nurses bridge the gap between technology and the nursing field.
Mm.
This is a nurse who her name is Amanda Payne, and she was in the technology sector. You know, she was in IT and then became a nurse, and now she's marrying that and
Oh, I
helping
love
other
that.
nurses overcome that gap.
Ooh.
Um, there's just been so many great nurses out there. There's nurses that are inventing new uh, devices, right? And
Hmm.
there's this wonderful event that happens. I think they call it like Nurse Con or something like that, where basically it's a big pitch fest for nurses that have invented something to get
Wow.
investment into their products. That's put on every year. So there's a lot of great things happening, but nobody hears about it. And so that's why I do what I
Wow.
do. So you can hear about these wonderful things that are happening out there.
Wow, I did not know that even existed, but that's actually exciting to me. And for all of you listening out there right now, I want you to, as you're listening to the rest of this episode, I want you to think, what are some things that are inside of you that you could also marry and create some beautiful babies with? Just think about it. So, how do you work with youth right now?
I'm glad you asked because through um, Baxter Professional Services Health Education, I have a group of high school students. These young ladies are in my CNA training program. So I do have a CNA training program as well. And uh, it's very interesting and rewarding to have such a group of young people. I've forgotten what it's like to work with teenagers because I'd work in adolescence as a nurse. So this has been really refreshing to work with them on a weekly basis and to see them grow.
And what do you do with them?
I help train them so they when they're done with the program, and if they pass my test, they
Hmm.
get to take the state test and become
Oh,
certified nursing assistants. And so they can then go out into the workforce and get a job immediately after high school, or even while they're in high school. They can start their journey on becoming a nurse or whatever in the healthcare field if they so choose to do so. So there's room for them to move on. So when they graduate from high school, they'll already be ahead of the game and already have a certification under their belt.
that's awesome. And this is something that you do in person only, I'm assuming.
Yes, it's in person. Well, it's kind of hybrid, but they have to be in person because of state rules and getting trained
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
CNA. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you find these students?
I actually have a contract with the school that's offering the program.
Oh,
So
okay.
they approached our company to offer the training for their students, and so we started the first class for them. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we may grow, and they've got 9 campuses, so who knows where this is going to go.
So CNA training is a good pathway to nursedom.
Yes, or actually, I've had when I had my other business training CNAs. We had our very first class. One of our students is now he became an administrator of the nursing home, kept the CNA, became the administrator. Then now he's the vice president, working for the entire chain. So that he started about 15 years ago, 16 years ago now. Oh gosh, it's been a long time. And then some of our students have become physician assistants. They've gone on to go to PA school. Some have become nurses. One entered medical school. So you don't know where it's going to take you. So just getting that start of how to talk to a patient, how to help someone with the physical care, what to look for as far as the changes in their condition and what to report, that goes a long way. you'll be surprised at how many people who enter the medical field who have never um, touched someone else's body in that way, in a professional way, never had a conversation with an older adult that wasn't part of their family.
Mm,
So this is a great way of getting that step into the healthcare field, and knowing that if it's something you're going to really like, because that's another important thing too.
mm.
So you can take the class, learn the certification, and get started, and then figure out, is healthcare really for me, without having to invest a lot of money or time. Because some people find out, you know what, this isn't for me. One of our students, she worked as a CNA for a little while, but she found out that she really liked the culinary arts, and so she became a chef. She worked dietary in the nursing home, and then
Mm.
became a chef. So she has her own catering business, as well
Oh,
as
nice.
now over all the kitchens in the nursing home. So yeah, she's doing good things.
Oh, that's good.
But she started out
I
as a CNA.
I like the idea of starting off as a senior, doing something. I like the principle or the idea of trying to work in a field first before spending all of that time and investment, and especially money,
Yes.
into going to school, because nursing school is not easy. I my stepsister's a nurse, and she's a really good one. But it was difficult doing that, especially being a single mother with a kid, you know. But she did it. She worked her behind off, and now she's doing well. But I know how hard that nurses have to work to get to that. I just have known a few, and yeah, you want to make sure it's what you're getting into. Just like someone goes into law, make sure that that's what you want to do before you spend
Exactly.
all this time and money, and then you're like, I want to be a dancer because I can't stand that. And you spend all this time, and this is what happens to people when they're rushed into, this is the career we want you to do. And it's something I talk about a lot, because I don't think that anybody should rush into a career they're not sure about. Now, you might have to do things before you figure it out. That's normal. But I think one of the best ways to figure it out is, like you said, work in the field that you're considering doing. It might be doing something else. You might just be an orderly. Do something so that you're in there, so that you can kind of get a gist of what things are like, and then you can make a better decision. And like, you might go, oh my god, this is absolutely it, I'm definitely sure now. Or I have had people, and I'm sure you've seen this too, I've seen people who have told me that they went to go become something in the medical field, nurse, doctor, whatever it was, and then they go to school and they realize, I don't like blood. So, you definitely can't work anywhere in the medical field if you don't like blood. So it's
Those are the
not for
people
you.
that work in administration.
Yeah, you can't. That's something you can't do. I'm one of those people where I can watch you dig around my arm and with a needle I have, and not flinch and just look like, did you find it yet? Like, that doesn't bother me. But don't spit, because I'm totally grossed out by that.
The spitting part, the sputum, I don't do well with, but I've been around dead bodies since high school. So it's for me, that was nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, in high school, because I was part of this learning program, and this is what I'm going to say for your young listeners. Hey, listen, if you get an opportunity to do something that maybe feel uncomfortable, go for it. So
Mm-hmm.
I was part of this program called Upward Bound, and we got to work with these students. And also, I had a chance to work on the campus of the medical college as a student leader in the lab. And because I was there doing these rotations, the physicians there took me under their wing, me and this other girl. And every time they had an autopsy, they would let us come and learn.
Oh, wow.
And so I got a chance to see 3 autopsies, all before I went to college, by the way.
Oh, wow.
So I saw an older gentleman who died from COPD and really bad lung cancer. Well, when they opened him up, and not to be too graphic for your show, but I think it's important for our young people to hear this, one of his lungs looked perfect. It was pink, healthy. The other lung was so damaged by the cancer and the smoking, it was shriveled and blackened. It was
Oh, wow.
horrible. And he showed me where On the outside, the lung looked good, but when he opened up the other lung that looked healthy, he should show me where the damage was
Oh, wow.
in the lung. And so I want young people to hear that don't smoke, don't smoke. As an ex-smoker, that stuck with me in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't smoke. It's terrible. But I saw that, and then I saw, unfortunately, I watched an autopsy of a baby. They wanted to know why the baby died. That was pretty sad. And then I saw
Did
an
that traumatize
autopsy.
you at all?
No, um, I'm very good with stuff like that.
Okay.
I I learned how to detach early. I don't know. I've always been curious about science and the human body, so I
Hmm.
was very good with stuff like that. And my dad, my dad brought me medical books that had like the human body in there and dissections and all this
Hmm.
stuff when I was younger. So I already knew what the human body kind of looked like.
Wow,
I just
okay.
hadn't seen it in person. And so for me, it was a learning opportunity, and I was so focused on what I wanted to learn, and it was really good. The only thing that was bad was the smell. That was really bad. But to say, I've also been around older adults a lot, though, growing up, because my mom was a volunteer in the nursing home. So, kind of the rule in the house was wherever mom volunteered, that's where we also volunteered.
I get that. I get
We
that.
would go with her when she was volunteering. So I had been around older adults all my life and kind of was used to that population going into nursing homes and seeing things. So for me, it wasn't scary at all.
Okay.
And what was terrifying for me was OB.
Really?
My cousin is an OBGYN, or he was. I think he retired now, but I spent 2 weeks with him. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't go to medical school. Because I just saw the lifestyle and I'm like, yeah, not for that. And so I realized I was never going to be an OB nurse because of that experience. What got to me was I didn't like being woken up in the middle of the night to go to the hospital for someone to have a baby and there was no baby. It was Braxton Hicks. I was like, you woke me up at 3
Oh,
a.m. for no
yeah, that
baby.
would happen.
Oh, he's all happy, whatever. And I'm over there mad.
Not for you.
I need my sleep. Okay.
So it
So
sounds
I'm
like the experience what you were saying earlier really rings true. If you get an
Mhm.
opportunity to have a new experience, do it
Do
because
it.
you don't know what it's going to teach you. It will
Exactly.
teach you it will teach you what you can and can't handle, which is good to know ahead of time.
I knew OB wasn't for me, and I worked in the lab for 3 summers, and I realized I couldn't do that for the rest of my life. Sorry, lab people, but it was boring.
Yeah.
It was the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And I love my midwifery friends, and I would tell them went to school together. And we would be in some of the same classes, and they're like, "Oh, I can't wait to be a midwife." And I'm just thinking, why? And they're like, "Oh, because the birth experience is beautiful." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's all the same." And they're like, "Oh no, every experience is different." I was like, "No, it's not, unless something exciting happens." And of course, you don't want anything exciting to happen.
No,
So
you
no,
don't.
it's not for me.
But and that's the thing. That's the thing. It's good that you were able to figure out what
Yes.
is and isn't for you because someone else that the things that turns you off will turn somebody else totally on. There are people who will sit in a lab all day and it's super exciting. They
Yep.
don't get excited by events, they get excited by information. So for that type of person, a lab is amazing. They get excited by discovery. You do a lot of that in the lab. So, it's different for each of us and that's
Hmm.
beautiful. So and I'm saying that because I want all the listeners to hear more than just about nursing, hear the principles of what she's talking about, because everything she's saying is extremely important, regardless of what field you're getting into. Take the principles behind what she's saying and apply them for yourself. Figure out when you want to figure out your career, have those experiences. You work if you think you want to own a store, work at Walmart. If you think you want to, start there.
Yes.
If you think you want to own a restaurant, start off at 16 or 14 or whatever age and work at McDonald's. That's not a regular restaurant, but it's a start, and then you can move up from there. There's things that you'll learn, like, oh my God, I can't stand standing on my feet all day and cooking food, so that ain't for me. Or I just want to eat the food, I don't want to cook it no more. Just whatever it is, for people to figure out. So I love that you brought out those factors because I think it's very important for people to hear. And me personally, the medical field has never been an interest to me. Um, so to me, it's all like, okay, it's just stuff that people do. But the thing that I do like about nursing and being a doctor and a lot of the medical field actually, but especially in those two positions, you guys really make a difference in people's lives. Like for real, you guys and nurses and doctors make a difference differently. And I will tell you from my own experience, doctors make a difference because they could kill you or they can help you live better. Okay, that's enough of a difference right there, right?
Yeah.
So they can help you solve a problem or they can kill you. Either way, hopefully they'll help you solve a problem. But nurses, you guys spend more time with the patients than the doctor just by nature of how things are set up here in the US. So you guys are the ones that sometimes are the ones that are comforting the patients where the doctor can't, because the doctor has to talk to you and do what he has to do, he or she, and then just like dart off to the next patient. By nature, they absolutely have to do that. Nurses, you have to do that too, but you have to spend a little more time with the patient. And I know I've had more conversations with nurses, and I don't remember the names of the other positions, the other people that take your blood pressure and stuff like that. Some of those people, they can make a difference too, because they also hold conversations with patients. And sometimes they could be the one that comforts us when you
Yes.
think, when you're like scared you're about to die or your heart's going to explode or whatever's going on with you. It's important to have people around you who can soothe you the best they can, whatever that means, because it's going to be different for each of us. But I know that you guys do make a big difference in people's lives because you can make or break someone's psyche in a situation, and how we think. And I know this is a mind shifter. How we think is absolutely everything, because how we think affects our physical health as well. And I know as a nurse, you already know that. Um, so I just thank you for all that you guys do. Um, Now, I want to ask you, what advice, you've already talked about it a little bit, but what advice do you have for a teen considering getting into the nursing field now?
I would say look for opportunities. And
Mm-hmm.
in your community, there may be a chance for you to get a CNA training class or even start with getting CPR trained.
Mm.
Take a CPR class, learn first aid. One of the things we try to do is to get them involved in making some of those decisions that you have to make, in an emergency. Just learning those little things can kind of open up doors. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right?
Mm.
Look for some organizations in your community. So in our community, we have the Black Nurses Association, of which I happen to be the president, and in our community, and we look for students that want some coaching, mentoring to help them if they want to enter the nursing field, because we want them to understand some of the behind the scenes stuff. So if there's an opportunity for you to go to a job fair or get a job working at the hospital, I don't care if it's volunteering as a candy striper like they call back in the day, or working as a volunteer, try to do something to get to know some of the people that are doing the things that you're interested in doing. Get into their atmosphere.
Mm.
You'll find mentors there and people who will want to help you. People genuinely want to help you. And you'll find the right people to do that. And that's one of the things that was very encouraging to me as a nursing student, as two of the members of the Black nurses happened to be in the hospital. One was a nursing supervisor of the hospital, and one was a vice president of mission in the hospital. And they took me under their wing and helped guide me through that process and made sure that I got exposed to opportunities. And a lot of times they're right. It is who you know. And
Mm.
so because we were part of this, they made sure that I got a chance to work as a nurse tech on the floor and to do other things. I also worked in home care and hospice care during that time. And
Mm.
they let me work and volunteer in the church health stations and put me on salary as a paid person to work for them. So, they did all these different things to encourage me as a brand new nurse, as a nursing student becoming a nurse. And so find out if there's organizations in your area that's doing what you want to do. So I'm a mentor with an organization called Pass the Torch in Indianapolis. And one of the young ladies that I mentored was going into mortuary science. Now, I don't know much about mortuary science other than they take care of the dead bodies, yada, yada, yada. What I didn't know was that was a very male dominated industry.
Oh, okay.
So much so that they actively sometimes discourage women, and particularly women of color, from going into the field.
Hmm.
And so this young lady was she was also a chef. I don't know why I keep getting these chefs in my life, but it's great. She was also a chef by training, but she was not in love with food anymore. She loved it when she was doing it, but she was burnt out on that. She didn't want to do that anymore. And so her heart's desire was to own her own funeral home one day.
Okay.
And so I was able to help her navigate some things, get in touch with some organizations, kind of coach her through a problem she was having in her program, because in Indiana, there's only 2 places you can train to be a mortician.
Oh, really?
And the one program had to shut down temporarily because the person that was over it teaching it retired suddenly. And they
Oh,
had no one to replace that person. So she had to go back to another school that she had previously left, and went back there because they're the only other school in the state that had a program. I was able to encourage her to continue and say, hey, this is a different experience for you. You were there before, but you're a totally different person now, and you're doing something you really want to do to keep at it. So I know she's doing well, and she's kept at it. So I'm just saying, you could start something, enjoy it, love it, but maybe after a while it's not the right thing in that season for you, and you could always make a shift and change. So don't be afraid to try something new. And if you love it, great. If you love it now and maybe not later, that's fine too. You can always make a change. You have
yes.
plenty of time to do that in your life.
It is okay to change careers, and a lot of people
Yes.
do that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
You can get tired of something after a while, and okay, I want to move on. And I've known people to do the opposite I don't know why, but especially when it comes to chefs. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen people go from the medical field to chefry, to
Yes.
becoming a chef, the culinary arts. They were a beautician and then they decided to become a nurse. It's okay to do that, because if you have gifts and talents, which we all do, but most of us have more than one. So you might find a different avenue to use another, or you just get burnt out sometimes. You just want something new. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it is okay to say, I'm going to do this for 10 years and then I'm going to do something else, you
And
know?
that's perfectly fine and perfectly valid. And then maybe you'll fall into like a hobby that suddenly becomes part of your job. Not a lot of people know that I was a radio DJ.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yes,
know that.
I was a radio DJ in high school and college. I had a jazz show in high school, and then I had a gospel show in college. I went to a Christian university. And I only got into broadcasting in high school because I ran out of classes to take. I seriously did.
There we go. Trying something new.
Nothing would fit into my schedule. And I was getting ready. I could have graduated early, but I didn't want to do that. I could have graduated in January, but I liked school, plus I was on the student council and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to stay in school, and I was in the band. And so I needed something to fill that gap. And I said, oh, they have radio broadcasting. That's completely out of my element. Never would have thought about it. So I convinced my mom, because she was also in radio and television at the time. She worked in public relations. So she didn't want me to go into radio and television or music. That's a whole other story. But I convinced her to let me take the class, and I started taking it, and I loved it. So I kept up the show in college until I had to set it aside because of school. I was had a major in biology and 2 minors at the time, so I had to let it go. But I was telling my mom a couple years ago when I started the podcast, I was just doing my thing one day, and I looked up and I said, oh my gosh, those skills that I learned back in high school and college, being a radio DJ, just came back to me and naturally added to my work as a podcaster. I just couldn't believe it. And I said,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
nothing's wasted. So maybe
Yeah.
there's something you've done like as a kid that you enjoy that later on you get to do again. And I'm like, this one of the reasons why I'm so comfortable behind a mic.
I was on the radio before I did the podcast. You probably didn't know that either, but I really think it trained me for the podcast. You know,
Mm-hmm.
again, it was an opportunity that was brought to me. I didn't go to them and say, "Hey, I want to be on the radio." It was brought to me. It was like, "Would you like to be on my radio show? Because you have a lot to say." So I'm like, "Sure." And I really think that gave me training for the podcast. So I'm grateful for it. And again, I
Yeah.
see the running theme here is create opportunities or seek them out and do something different because you don't know what's gonna be the outcome of that, and it could change your trajectory for life. It could change where you're headed career wise, make a difference for you. That's a big deal. Now, we talked about the fact that you have a podcast. So before we go, if you could tell the audience where they could find your podcast and where they could find your other businesses.
Okay, great. So it's the Nurse Shark Academy show. And you can find us on our website, the nursesharkacademy.biz, or you can go to Podbean and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, well, not Google now, it's YouTube now, Samsung, Amazon, Spotify.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we also have the YouTube channel. So you can also follow us on the YouTube channel and subscribe.
Awesome. Well, Tina, it has been awesome talking to you. It's really been fun, and I've actually gotten really excited about just lots of the conversation. I love talking about entrepreneurship, and we can hear your passion and excitement. And I think you are doing the right. I think you're in the exact right field where you belong, and sounds like you're making a difference for other people, which is at the end of the day the biggest deal. So again, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And now, for a mind-shifting moment. I want to plant a thought seed in your head today. I want to go back to a statement that I made earlier. It is never too late to make a career change. I want to talk to a particular portion of my audience today. Are you considering a career change? Are you kind of tired of what you've been doing and you think it's time to move on? I want you to know that if that's you, it's actually okay. It is okay to have a complete and total rerouting of your career and do something different, or sometimes just a different a different career within the same field, whatever it is for you, something totally different. Don't let anyone convince you that you can't. You can, and it's okay. I just want to add, please use wisdom as you do it. If you need to go back to school, go back to school. Still keep your job and go back to school until you're ready for it. And if it's not something that you need to go back to school for, make whatever moves you need to. Career changes are okay. In fact, for some of you, it's a good idea. So if that's you, it's just something I want you to think about. Thank you for listening to Mindshift Power Podcast. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Mindshifter. If you have any comments, topic suggestions, or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit fatimabay.com/podcast. Remember, there's power in shifting your thinking. Tune in for next week.